Hi guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host as always, Steve Hall, and today we have another great Q&A with Dr. Scott Stevenson. And one of the questions we particularly dig into is hypogonadism in natural competitors, and is it a problem, and can we expect it to recover? And we dig into a lot more during this episode. And as a reminder guys, we do have our contest prep handbook. So if you're thinking about taking the stage and you want some guidance and you want some further education, this handbook is going to go a long way in providing you a lot of education and guidance towards that goal. But without further ado, let's get into the show. Let's get to the next question then. It's quite a lengthy one. Cameron Meacham, he asked, we are all aware of the literature on fasted cardio and it's showing no effects on fat loss when compared to fed. But from Scott's own time in the trenches amongst very experienced large bodybuilders seeking to achieve absurd body fat percentages, has he personally seen fasted cardio be superior to fed? Relevance of desired body fat, is that not important? If the research isn't done on people trying to get to absurd levels of body fat, only those like somewhat lean, 10 to 15%. Is there a potential difference for those trying to seek kind of extreme levels of body fat?
So people who listen, I'm not a big cardio guy. I don't do any cardio. If you can, because it sends, there's an interference effect that comes from cardiovascular training that affects people variously. It's, you can't say that everyone's going to lose their legs if they do cardio, but some people, do indeed have issues with maintaining leg size. So I'm a bigger fan in general, just to sort of preface all of this, of increasing your NEAT. And I just heard John Jewett was on Blood, Sweat, and Gear, and he was talking. He asked about one of his techniques, which is a great one. I'll just pass it along, giving John total credit, of increasing NEAT. And he stopped doing traditional cardio and just like do a lap around the gym between your sets, and you end up getting another 8,000 steps or something like that a day easily. And people think you're a little bit crazy, so your workouts are not interrupted either. So that I think is a good step. But for someone who's going to do cardio, he's right. The research doesn't really say it makes a difference. There's a couple things that I generally think might be at play there with why it seems like it works. And I think the biggest one is it just sets you up for success throughout the day. You get up, and the first thing you do is you get on track as a bodybuilder. It's rise and grind, baby. I'm eating nothing, maybe I'm having my essential amino acids, if you want to do that or not. And you go right to the gym, and the first thing you do is get after it, and you do your cardio. And now you set the pattern up for your day where, like, any of those breaches from a missed meal or doing something that's not on your plan, I think they're less likely to happen. It's a behavioral strategy, I think, as much as anything. You got the cardio in, it's 200 calories, whether it's 200 in the morning or 200, later on the day. And that's going to be important for some people, because it's almost like you've got a coach, like there's probably a term for this, but it's almost working against, or it's helping with your abstinence from breaking the pattern of diet. You already set yourself up. It's like I got up and did my morning cardio today. I'll be damned if I'm going to have a bite of that cookie that they have at the office. I got up today at 5:30 and did fasted cardio, halfway hypoglycemic, in a daze. I'm not tempted to do that. Like, I'm not going to undo all this good stuff that I just did. So you've got a psychological momentum, for lack of a better term, that's already going. The other thing that could play a role, and this is substantiated by some literature. I don't know that I haven't seen this measured. It would be interesting to see this measured, but in some of these studies, or if people even want to do anymore looking at fasted cardio, but the fuel that you use during exercise is reflective of your fed state or fasted state. So it's true. Like, you wake up fasted and you'll burn more fats. Generally speaking, if you add carbs before your meal, you got insulin there, you're going to tend to oxidize more carbs. So the fuels that you use are going to be different. And it all comes down to energy balance, that's for sure. But this is totally like, it's like, you're like grasping for stuff, Scott, when you talk about this one.
Right.
But if you look at the literature, and this was pretty hot and heavy for a while, looking at endurance athletes, getting them to try to fat adapt, where they train without carbs on a high fat diet. The idea being that you could then upregulate your lipolytic enzymes and your ability to oxidize fat during exercise, which does indeed happen. And then through that, you would then, for instance, in a long endurance race, be able to maintain your race pace, oxidizing more fat, less carbohydrate, so that you don't bonk as easily, or you don't bonk at all because your glycogen stores stay higher throughout the. It doesn't seem to pan out as a long-term strategy because you can't train as hard without the carbs. The fat you never get good enough at oxidizing fat to be able to have the same training stimulus and train as hard. So then you sort of detrain, and then you end up shooting yourself in the foot because you couldn't train as hard because you weren't having any carbs. But for someone who's a bodybuilder, maybe who's adding in carbs throughout the day, and they're not trying to be on a ketogenic diet for months while they're trying to train necessarily, they're having some carbs, because carbs are very important, obviously, for resistance exercise performance. Could be, that you've got, and I think I may have found some literature to this effect, but it could be that you could be training your ability to oxidize fat, and some of the metabolic flexibility literature sort of points to this idea that if you get up in the morning and you do, high energy flux exercise of moderate or even higher intensity, and you're using you have to use fat because there's no carbohydrates other than blood glucose around. So you're relying upon fat, that you become better at oxidizing fat in general. There may be an effect on metabolic flexibility, such that you're able to oxidize fat, and you're more likely to choose fat as a fuel in some way that shifts your metabolism towards fat oxidation. So it's like, well, it still comes down to calories, right? Well, we know, yes, that's true. But if you look at something like growth hormone isn't, it could actually sort of reduce thyroid. So it's not known for being having a massive thermogenic effect, but it definitely turns on lipolysis, and it definitely helps many people with fat loss when they take exogenous growth hormone. So you can look at pharmacological interventions that shift toward, or L-carnitine, for instance, that shift towards fatty acid oxidation, that aren't boosting metabolism. L-carnitine can actually slow your metabolism if you're taking too much. That's a huge topic. I wrote a big article for John's site about this. It's fascinating stuff, Steve. Look that up if you want. We can talk about that maybe in the future. So it may be that you're training yourself to be a better oxidizer of fat. And this is why, this is one thing that was thrown as to why ketogenic diets work well for some people for dieting. Like, there's the effect on appetite, makes it easier to stick to the diet, but it might mean that you get better at oxidizing fat over time. There's some literature, generally it's all just calories, but there's a couple studies that have pointed to the idea that if you look at people who have impaired insulin sensitivity, which is remedied by a low carb diet, that they do better on low carb diets. And so those people who would do better on a low carb versus a high carb diet, hypocaloric diet, are those who get the advantage of a better insulin sensitivity, because they started off insulin insensitive, insulin resistant, relatively speaking. So it could be some piecing together some, sort of peripheral information. Could be that training in the morning and really turning on the fatty acid flux makes you into a better fat burning machine, so to speak. And that has a metabolic advantage. And it could be that that and the behavioral aspects are intertwined, because one thing, and this is a total kind of empirical thing, you may have seen this too, is if someone's bringing their carbs down, like on a diet, there's kind of a no man's land. A lot of times it's maybe around 100 grams of carbs a day, where you're not quite in ketosis, or maybe you go into ketosis, right, and then you come out. So you're like, where the fuck am I, like, metabolically speaking? And it makes you want to eat carbs or break, like, you're not sure what to do. Sometimes it's better. It's like, okay, fuck it. We're going from 150 down to 50. We're going to just get you into ketosis. Then you have the advantage of the appetite suppressing ketone bodies. And then it's like, and carbs aren't on the meal plan. I'm not doing that. So it might be for some people that if they're getting up and they're doing cardio in the morning and they're getting that good start. So they've got maybe that metabolic shift that happens from the cardio in a fasted state. And they have the psychological shift that comes from waking up in the morning and doing that metabolic shift means that they're better able to resist whatever physiological weirdness happens in that no man's land of carbohydrate intake. And they're not like, they're more metabolically flexible. They're a better fat oxidizer. So they're like, I don't really need any carbs. I'm good. Like I'm already burning fat. They've already shifted themselves. So it may change the neurochemistry of their brain to make the dieting more easier for them to do. And they've already set themselves psychologically with that behavioral intervention and the metabolic intervention, so to speak, of no carbs during the morning cardio may assist in sticking there, because it becomes easier. It's like, this is nothing, I'm good at oxidizing fat. So they're not as tempted as someone might be who's insulin resistant, or eating more carbs and sort of in that no man's land. So those are my thoughts on the fasted cardio.
I guess at least as people are concerned, you still wouldn't, your choice is neat over doing cardio. Like, you wouldn't be a proponent, even with what you just said there. You're still a case of, you think all things being equal, you'd prefer someone not to implement cardio if they didn't need to.
If someone knows that cardio works for them and they dig it,
okay,
and if it ain't broken, I'm not going to fix it.
Yeah.
Like, you want to go with that for sure. If they dread cardio and it's the worst thing, and it's like takes away from their quality of life substantially, then I would look to say, can we go outside and do this and get involved with nature and still call it cardio? So because you feel like, I really think a lot of people, they have to feel like they're digging in, like they've got to sort of do a mental shift into, I'm a fucking, pardon my French, I'm a bodybuilder, and I'm going to do cardio, and it's going to hurt, baby, and I'm going to relish in the warriorness of being in this state of pain. So for some people, that fuels them. The harder it is, it's like plyometrics, box jumps. The higher you bring the box, the higher they jump. Yeah. Make it as hard as possible, because that's where I want to go. There may be some things to unravel there and unpack psychologically as to why they want to do that, but I wouldn't take that away from someone, because that could lead them to just crumble. It's like, I don't know what to do with myself. It's kind of like, I get lots of questions like, I like your fortitude training plan, but can we make it 6 days a week? Because I want to train as often as I can. So it's like, there may be something there, but you don't want to do that. But I've done this with clients where they're amenable to it, where it makes sense. There's so many like life-giving things that you can do with that need and that activity. I have one client who was just so awesome to work with, and she took that need and like reorganized like everything. I think it was in her basement, like just a massive amount of like working through things. And when she was done, she had that project that was completed. Another thing that she did is she wrote letters to friends that she hadn't, good friends that she wasn't in regular contact with, and then walked them down to the post office. So she did that. I don't know how many trips she took, but she just sent letter after letter after letter. And, so she, instead of being like, okay, after my 8-week deep dive into prep, I have to say apologies to my dog. I have to say apologies to my girlfriend, all these friends that I haven't heard from. Instead, these people are like, hey, how'd your show go? Or how you been? Or like they call you, you're talking to them. You've actually strengthened your personal relationships, and you've cleaned up you haven't now I have a whole mess. I have to clean up all this stuff that I didn't attend to. You take that energy and attend to those things and expend it. And you actually develop habits that are nice to carry over.
Yeah.
That are helpful post-show, because those are fun things to do. You keep doing them, so you have that energy expenditure, which would offset to some degree the increased food you're taking in, and I mean, for some people, like I said, they want to get into that zone, but it's nice to a nice way to feed your reward centers in the brain, instead of with food, with things that you enjoy doing. So for me, I treat myself to doing projects. People hear me talk about, I worked on my Jeep in the past, or one of my trailers, one of my RVs, or my truck. And I do like kind of like stuff. I just go on YouTube and figure out how to do something I don't know how to do. So I get intellectually stimulated, but I do like stuff that's really, really physically, a lot of times physically challenging, and expend a lot of calories that way. And I'm not even thinking, I'm just like, I got this. This is so cool. This is gonna be so cool when I'm done with this. Next thing I know, it's 4 hours later. It's like, I'm gonna have a meal now. I wasn't even hungry. I'm like, I'm glad I set my alarm, because I would have just kept on working. So that's what I prefer to try to do with people if it fits with them.
Yeah.
But if they're behind and they like the cardio, and there's lots of times when that could be just right. So it's not always a one size fits all thing. But
No, I like that perspective, and I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Scott, in terms of taking the individual into account, their preferences, all that sort of stuff. So that makes a ton of sense. But it is interesting. I think more of the kind of, I think more people in general, not just like the evidence-based and scientific crowd, but just in general, cardio seems, not that, I think there probably is a crowd that's like, oh, cardio is like, oh, you're going to lose muscle, whatever. But I think a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, like step counts and things like this. And I think most people do, and they get better life balance from that as well, versus like, and better like preference would be to go for a walk versus like the fasted cardio, say, or doing some sprints or something.
yeah. Yeah, there's so many things like, you bring your Tupperware to Thanksgiving with you. That's like that whole scenario, and you go out someplace, and, like every 5 seconds, it's like, you want some cookies? Like, no, I'm dieting. And like, oh, so 5 minutes later, hey, do you want some dessert? It's like, no, I'm on a specific diet. Like, you get like, there's so many things where you kind of feel you want to segregate yourself. You just don't want to have to go through the Q&A or whatever. So the nature of the beast is so, the Raising the Bar trilogy.
No.
Oh gosh, you should watch that. Yeah. Dave, blanking on Dave's last name. Mike, his brother was the photographer. He used to film Kai Green back in the day. I can't believe I'm blanking on Dave's name. I can see his face right now. Anyway, Raising the Bar 1, 2, and 3. It's basically about his competitions during his amateur career and almost getting to his pro card, and just what happens with his family, and like everything that he goes through. And it's like it's classical bodybuilding, like in the trenches stuff. It's one of the original. It's up there with it's up. I would actually say it's probably better than Pumping Iron in terms of like being a true documentary.
Well,
yeah. So yeah, all three of them are great. Girlfriend
awesome.
issues, family issues. His sister, and training in the gym and everything he goes through. It's phenomenal. So there's so many things. My point there was, there's so many things that there are sacrifices that have to go in. If you can make at least the energy expenditure something that's a group, or it's like, hey, I've got some cardio. Do you want to go for a walk with me, with a friend? And so there they go for a walk with you, and maybe just a phone call, and maybe they just have a phone call with somebody, hey, want to keep me company, as opposed to, I'm on the treadmill and I'm by myself and I got my, tunes going. That's one way to get it done. But there's, we can think outside that paradigm, I think. And I like to, like, at least people say, hey, here's another way,
Yeah.
One last story with my little monologue here. I'll never forget one of the earliest shows I did, and this was like 20 years ago, back in Arizona. And great guy, ended up winning the show, looked phenomenal, kind of came out of nowhere. And I remember I was sitting, I was sitting behind him and his good buddy, and I had just met him, and they were kind of chatting. We were kind of chatting back and forth and waiting for the athletes meeting. And the one guy says, it's like, so what do you eat afterwards? It's like, I don't know, man. It's like, I just can't wait. Just can't wait to talk to my girlfriend again and to see my parents again. And, I got so many apologies I need to make. And
Wow.
And yeah. And he was like, he looked, he killed it on the show. It was just amazing. Like, I don't know if he would have got a pro card with that physique, but it was really impressive. I remember, at least for me at that time. And yeah, he was just like, he was finally able to kind of stop. And like, he saw that the light at the end of the tunnel was there. And it's like, wow, I got some stuff I really regretted. And I felt really bad for him, because like, he wasn't able to relish his moment, because like, I think he was, whatever he did, like there was no one there to celebrate with him, because he pissed off all of his friends and family, And that's not what everyone does, but I think a lot of people have probably, like with you and your pup, you know, you realize, I kind of dropped the ball on that one, you know? So, you know, like someone in that situation, not trying to suggest what you should or shouldn't do, but it might be, normally it's a half an hour walk. It's like, well, we're going to spend 40 minutes because we got to have 10 minutes of checking the pee mail left by the other dogs in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's how it's going to be. So it's a 40-minute walk. We're going to get 30 minutes of cardio in, and that we'll still get the steps in, and just plan that. And then it's part of the regimen, and you know you're in there. And you get up 10 minutes early and you get the leash out and your dog starts going bonkers. Totally worth it. Because, you know, we're giving 10 minutes of this is all for you, you know, and then it becomes life giving, you know, and life enriching. And that's where it's at, man, is to try to make this endeavor as much as possible. It's life enriching to have a struggle that you've overcome, you know, but there are other ways you can also conquer life struggles by making the best of the difficult things in this sort of way. You know, imagine it's your last day. That's a good way to, like, in my opinion, like if your last day, would you stop and let your dog sniff? Hell yeah, you would. Would you call a friend when you're doing that cardio? Yeah, you would do everything you could to connect with everyone and do all those things that are important to you. Because you can do that. You just got to sort of think of, you know, another way to, like I said, outside the normal paradigm, outside the typical box, and it can happen. So, all right, we got time for another one.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Yeah, for sure. Well, depending on your timeline, I was just going to say it.
At this rate, no.
Like now, I don't know, it's kind of, to me, it's like, it's using the principles we know, and like there's so many methods. It's like flexible dieting, for example, opened a whole new paradigm, for example, like, and this neat, like it's a similar sort of, like, it just makes bodybuilding more of a lifestyle versus in the trenches, like you have to do or die these elements. So but yeah, we'll get to the next question. So this is from
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all right. It's from Luke Schultz, and he asked, when going to a gym with equipment you've never used before, how do you gauge what load to use?
So I can always just kind of tell. I mean, I've been at it a hot minute, as they say. So I kind of I can look, but the thing that I do, I mean, like for most of the time, and, you know, this won't be the way always, but most of the time I end up using the full stack for most things that I do. So I kind of go there. Yeah. I mean, I'm not like some giant, you know, super strong guy, but the interesting thing is on most machines, you have a bell curve, at least on the selectorized machines. The other machines, you probably have some idea. There's some some of the pendulum squat, the humbler as it's known, some places like that one, you got to know, like, you're not going to be putting 4 plates on a side there, because that one's just different. So you can tell, like hammer strengths, most of those you might know because you've used very similar machines. But on a stack, you've got a bell curve right there. If you look at the side of the stack where the pin goes in through the holes on each plate, look at how the paint or the finish is scratched off. There's not very much at the top. Down where most people put the weight is where you're going to see the biggest lack of color or lack of paint or of finishing. And then look at the bottom and you can see the plates hardly going in, the pins are hardly going in there. No one's using that. So if you see it's a 200-pound stack and you don't see hardly any paint missing below like 120, it's probably a pretty heavy stack. Most of it's missing, or like, because you never get the hole, so people are chipping away where they typically go.
Yeah,
it's literally a path, so to speak, of a sorts around where the average person lifts. So if you know where you stand in terms of the average person, you could even look at your own gym and say, okay, this is interesting. I'm about 50% stronger than the average person who puts a pin in this stack and does their sets. So that's like a really it's kind of cool, you know, to look
I'd never thought of that.
Yeah, but it's totally there. You'll just totally notice it. Yeah. And like some, you start to learn the brands too, you know, if you pay attention. You know, some brands are what's the brand? Blanking now. The one that where your body weight, you lift your body weight as well. The whole thing.
The hoist.
Hoist. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. You hoist yourself up. like that one's kind of interesting because it seems like those, like I always use a whole stack on those, almost always, for whatever reason. It's nice. It's a good load, but yeah, maybe that's just relative strength because, you know, my strength relative to my body weight is higher than the average person. So that one I can just kind of tell. I don't even have to look for those markings. And I've used all those machines, but generally there. And otherwise, if you don't have any of that, then it's an opportunity to refine your ability to sort of sense where your load should be. Who asked this? What was the
Luke Schultz?
Yeah, Luke. You probably will. After a few years, you'll get a better idea. You'll be able to feel out how much weight you should use. So it depends. Your warm up regimen is going to be kind of important with this. I don't do a ton of warm up. I do enough to ready myself for the working sets. Some people like to do a set of 20, a set of 15, a set of 10, 8. You know, they have sort of a standardized thing. Then you know for sure.
Yeah.
So if you're not quite sure where to go with your work set, you may need to do a more extensive warm up. So you're coming a little bit closer to a fatigue state. And maybe even in this case, for the sake of safety, maybe impairing your performance on work sets a little bit because you've pushed a little bit more on the sets that you weren't really trying to make into effective rep type sets. So you have an idea. It's like, okay, I did that 8 times. I probably feel like I could have done that 16. So I'm going to go up about, 10, 20% for a set of 12. And then, but you could, if you only did set of 4 with that, you're like, I can't tell how heavy that is. You have to get where you're starting to feel it a little bit to know, okay, I think I had, you estimate your reps in reserve. I think I had 6 reps in reserve. That's a 16 rep max for me. That can be off too. So as another thought, you can start practicing and getting more adept at estimating your reps in reserve early on in the set. So let's say you're someplace and like, okay, when you're at 4, like think to yourself, how many am I going to get? Try to hold that number. If you're with somebody, say 10, just say it, so you don't throw yourself off for your set. And then if you get 20 more reps, then you were way off. That happens. That's been documented in literature where, the trainees think they've got 3 or 4 more. And when they're actually pushed by the experimenters, they get 10, so that's a common phenomenon to underestimate the actual reps in reserve. So get better at that. And eventually, you'll be able to pick up a weight and know 2 reps in, we're good to go. This is the weight. This happened to me just yesterday. I was doing a side, actually happened twice at a gym because I'm down, new place, new gyms. And there's a lat pull down machine. There's one that was it was made for people 7 feet taller or taller. I ended up having to use it because it's the only one that's heavy enough. One right next to it was nice, but I looked at the thing. I put the pin in about a little past halfway. I'm like, that's really light. I went down to it was like a 200-pound stack. I went down to 180, 170. I did 1 rep. I'm like, oop, nothing. That's going to be way too light for what I want to do. I knew right away. It was just way too light.
Yeah.
Same thing happened on they have a bunch of side lateral machines. It took me two steps. I put in once. I'm like, that's pretty light. I went down almost to the stack. I'm like, nope, that's going to be too light too. So I just had to do another machine. So I didn't waste any time with it. You'll get to that point after, but you got to pay attention, and so get used to estimating early on. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see, Steve, if you go and start paying attention to the bell curve, the path, the worn path on the plates, where you are, because I imagine you're probably close to the bottom of most of the stacks too.
Don't know. All right. Yeah. And actually, I guess, it depends. We have quite a lot of plate loaded in the gym I'm at now, which is a nice change actually. But then I don't get to check that out. But it's interesting. I think at least, like you said, once you've got a lot of experience and if you do some warm ups, if someone's, I don't know, you could be off by a couple of reps and I guess that's not the end of the world as a one-off in that gym. But I guess, would your preference also be, do you like to switch around gyms or do you like kind of sticking to a single gym and seeing the progress on the machines and using them consistently? I'm doing fortitude training. I didn't have the camera set up to show this, but I'm doing back to kind of my old program, sort of based on my program. So 2 of those days are very progressive overload oriented.
So I like to stick to those gyms because you can use the same machines and come back around. It's basically kind of 3 groupings, very DC-esque. But then, and I built this in intentionally because it's fun to go to new gyms and check out. And there's so many
Sure.
gyms down here, man. So on the muscle round days, those are the days where you can keep track of what you're doing. So like there's a particular lat machine that you like, or back machine that you like, or what have you. You can come back and try to beat your previous muscle round performance on that, but you don't have any obligation. So you go and you do whatever you instinctively in an auto-regulatory fashion feel is a right exercise for what you feel like doing that day, how sore you are, what your rate of perceived soreness is or recovery is. And so those days are just journey days. So 2 days you're stuck in it and you're progressive and you're log booking, and then you can log book the muscle rounds too. But those are the days where I'm going to go check this gym out because it looks good on Google. So I like both. I love to go to gyms, man. I was before the pandemic I was on a gym tour, and seminar tour. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
No, it's definitely nice. Like, as once you understand what you're trying to achieve in the gym, like going and trying different gyms, I mean, like it's silly to think, I have to be so regimented, I have to use the same, like in some situations that's ideal, like where you're tracking your progress, but you can still make the progress using the same program and implementing it in different gyms, because most gyms will have a machine row of a sort that's very similar. It's just, you have to be careful about load selection and where you are.
Yeah. I mean, free weights aren't the same.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Like Bev Francis gym in Syosset, New York.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of famous for having plates that are like 52 pounds. Or
oh, really?
Yeah, something they've measured them. They're heavier, And like I have plates I have here at home. They're just, I know they're heavier. I can tell they are. And I think they were 49 when I weighed them. It's like you can feel it. So plates, even free weights aren't the same. Bars, somebody should get like a 20 kilo bar, and it's not exactly 45. It's 40. It's pretty close. Oh, your pup's in the background there.
Yeah, she's been messing around with me down here.
Yeah, it's all good. I know the feeling. But the hammer strength, even the hammer strength machine. So if you're using plate loaded stuff, the hammer strength machines vary year by year. They would just make small alterations.
Yeah.
And that's noticeable. And I noticed that especially back in like the formal DC training days, when I was doing, this was mainly with Dave Henry, and we would, if one of us had to travel, or if I would travel, we tried a new machine, or they changed the machine. You could tell a difference. Like the chest press machines just have a little bit of different loading curve. Yeah. And when you're down to like, I got 9 reps last time and I just want to get 10, and that's a huge victory because I've been doing this exercise for 102 weeks now, and or 100, like 2 years, and I've been progressing each time. And I'm not stopping now. And all of a sudden you do it's like this, it's the wide chest hammer strength, but this one you can just see, if you look closely, you can see and you can feel it a little different. And all of a sudden, like, okay, I just got 6 more reps. Like, this is obviously different. Or like I lost 4 reps, I got destroyed. Shit, machine's different. So yeah, you just kind of, that's one of the reasons why when I set up fortitude training, and you have a lot of clients too, probably, who travel, the businessmen, or they just can't always make the same gym, or maybe they've got a gym that they really would prefer to train at, but they only can get there on the weekends.
Yeah.
That's why one reason why I set up the program, so that those 2 days, like that's part of the deal, is you're capitalizing on your ability to find better machines, find better gyms, auto-regulate into choosing the right exercises that fit where you are. If your low back's trashed because you just did rack deads the day before and squats 2 days before that or something, then there's no point in trying to do a bent over row when you can do supported rows, or a seal row or something like that. Or you've got this great supported leverage row at this machine, at this gym that you love to train at. And it's like, nope, I got to do bent over barbell rows today. And it's like, but there's all these awesome machines that make more sense recovery wise and training wise. And plus your enthusiasm higher. It makes it so much more enjoyable and fun. People love doing fortitude training. That's one of my favorite pieces of feedback, is they dig it. And novelty novelty is the essence, in my mind, of progressive overload. It's novel when you
Sure.
got more reps or use more weight. It's the novel stimulus that produces the novel adaptation. So you can create novelty just by doing another exercise that you haven't done. So that's what those days are about, is taking advantage of the novelty of the stimulus. And so it makes a fun way, instead of like having to beat the logbook, you just beat yourself up with a new exercise that you really want to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Awesome. Have you got time for one more question, Scott?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. We get to the last question here from Darko Stankovic. He asks, how often Scott sees hypogonadism in natural competitors? Is that something people like Steve, and other elite natural competitors, he's called me elite, that's very nice, need to be afraid of? And if so, how can they minimize risk of becoming permanently hypogonadal?
So, Steve, did you ever do any markers, do any blood work when you were deep in prep?
I didn't.
Okay.
I need to be better at doing my blood work. It's an excuse. I don't like needles. I have done it before, and I can and it's actually reasonably simple to get it here in the UK. So I need to be better at it. But no, I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, no credit. I was just curious. I mean, there's several case studies, and this is, it's gonna happen. Your sex drive goes into the shitter. It happens with enhanced guys too. Like, there's just being at 4% body fat just is incongruent. It's inconsistent with having massive sex drive. It just doesn't make sense. You just don't feel good, necessarily. So the thing is, but I think the essence of this question is, can you cause permanent damage to yourself? And as far as what I've seen, and maybe you probably work with probably a lot of natural guys too, I imagine, is that as long as you get out of that caloric deficits, this is very similar but much less studied as what you see with women and the female athlete triad. Where you can lose bone mass. That's kind of one of the issues for women, is they remain amenorrheic, and excessive exercise, such as they're losing their luteinizing hormone, pulsatility, and Luke's has done a lot of this less work, or some of the original stuff. Then the bone mass is something you can't get back, and that could happen to men too. I think I haven't seen it documented to the extent it has been with women, but that could happen with, let's say, a guy who wants to stay in contest shape for years, can lose some bone mass, and that may not come back. If you look generally at the bone mass literature, having whatever peak bone mass you get in your mid-late 20s is kind of where you're at, and then it declines over time to some degree, depending on a variety of things. So one strategy is really to get as much bone mass as you can while you're young, so that you'll have a reserve, so to speak, and the ability to prevent fractures or resist fractures in the future when you get older. So, but anyway, as far as reversing that acute hypogonadism, as long as you come out of the deficit and bring body fat up, and the endocrine system will restore itself, from what I've seen. But the issue could be, and this is the thing, even though it's been said a million times, it's human nature, man. There's just something you can't necessarily just can't wipe it. You can't be a Vulcan and just wipe this away. Is that when you've dieted down for the first time and you've set a new precedent, you've set a new level of how your physique looks, you want to hold that. Why would you want to give that up? It's like you want to keep it, So what will happen, of course, with men and women, is they'll try to stay at a body fat percentage that's below where they have to struggle to stay at. And for some, that means they're going to have some suppression of their hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis. It's just they're going to remain hypogonadal potentially until they've restored that caloric deficit that they had to have to get the body fat down. So that's, I think, the issue. Not that physiologically they couldn't bring themselves back, and that there's permanent damage. I mean, there's I haven't looked deeply in this recently, but there's some concern about, yo-yo dieting having a permanent effect on metabolism, and so that's, something I think could probably affect some people. I haven't seen that in men competitors. They diet down, they come back, over the years. But if someone were to stay low like that, for years, where they're constantly having to restrict their diet. Like, who's the guy? I think he may have been German. There was a guy, I haven't seen any pictures of him recently. I remember the last photo shoot. It was like the construction worker photo shoot.
Yes,
and the guy's just shredded like crazy, and he's like that all the time.
Yeah, I think he's London based. I can't remember his name.
The Brit.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think he trains in London.
I can't imagine that he's got, his testosterone is as high as it could be.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's not using something, which if he's on gear is a whole other issue. Although you can come back from that too, but hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. So a reduction in the LH and FSH is something that happens. That's an impairment that can come about from steroid use. And that's actually a large percentage of men who have hypogonadism, later in life. So middle age and beyond,
right.
It's hypogonadotrophic in nature. So that's something that can be restored with like a program for wellness restoration, power PCT protocol.
Right.
You can use that. So, but I haven't seen in natural competitors, as long as they kind of get back to, normal body fat and normal eating, I think you're good.
Yeah.
And that's what some of the case studies sort of show too, is that you do come back. But that's the thing. I mean, it's not as big of a concern, but like steroid using, used to be, today it's not so much anymore, but back in the day, like one strategy was like, okay, if you're on a cycle for a contest prep and now you come off, like you don't go back on until you're back to normal. Restore, and measure. You feel good, your blood works good, and then maybe even hold that for some period of time. So if someone is, this is maybe where his question's coming from, not casting any aspersions or trying to assume something I don't know, but if someone has done, which is pretty typical, they diet down, they get in great shape, best shape of their lives. Now they're getting all this social affirmation. They're getting attention they wouldn't otherwise get. They've got all these other things. Their ego and their self-image has changed. And now they're maybe almost somewhat unconsciously, they've changed everything. Like say they used an ultra low fat, lacking in saturated fat diet, which is going to tend to bring down their testosterone. And they're just staying now at 9 or 10%. And they're hypogonadal, not because their system has got some sort of permanent damage. It's because their diet and their lifestyle is such that they would have been had hypogonadism anyway. So, and they think, oh my gosh, I did something to myself. It's like, no, you are. Oh, it's walk time, I think.
Yeah, it's very close to that time.
Yeah, right.
Right at the end.
Welcome to my life, man. Mine took a walk earlier and they had breakfast, and mine are snoozing.
She's heard something ever since we moved out of the flat. We're 9 floors up, so she couldn't see anything. Whereas now she can see every fox, every person, and so she barks at them all because.
That's her job. Keeping you safe. Yeah. Protecting the village.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service that will take your physique and knowledge to the next level. If you're interested, check the description and sign up.
Yeah, I think you answered that question like very, very well, though. I think that was a good explanation. And also in my experience, like you said, I've not, particularly males, I just see like they seem, and from the competitors I've spoken to, which has been a large amount in addition to the people I've coached and obviously myself, just seem to rebound pretty rapidly once you get body fat to a reasonable point around those low teens or around 10% and food up to a good position. Like the stress drop off is big, but I've seen it even with people, like you said, they could have that, right? But if stress, like if their sleep's off, if the, I don't know, lifestyle is just in a really stressful position, they can be suppressing testosterone and things like this. So I think in most cases, and like you said, if you're getting to the point where you have like lines in your glutes and things like this, like your sex drive and you're hypogonadal at that point, like it's almost part of the process that in some ways you have to like joke about and embrace a little bit because it's extreme. But like you said, I've seen most people rebound back, and I think the case study, at least one of them was on Peter Fishin, who's like a researcher himself. So I think, it showed he rebounded back afterwards too. But yeah, it's pretty bleak when that's part of why probably I don't get blood, at least at that point, because it's quite bleak. Like you kind of know, you're just like, I know it's in the gutter. I just need to like get back.
Yeah. You know, a kind of a thought here too could be, really, the blood work's important, obviously, but most important is how you feel. You don't want to be, hypogonadal, have horrible blood work and feel okay and not know that there's some warning signs that, blood work could be telling you. But as far as sex drive goes, which is sort of one of the main things I think, and performance, so much of that is psychologically in male.
Yeah.
You can have, and I've had this, in clients as well, where it's like their performance is fine, their sex drive is fine, but their blood work doesn't suggest that they should be the stallion that they claim they are. At least they don't have any complaints there, and it's because they've got a healthy self-esteem and they've got a partner that finds them attractive. But flip this around to a situation where someone now is like, okay, I'm hypogonadal, my body fat's too low, and now they're like, God, they reluctantly bring their body fat and everything back up to where now they're sort of physiologically online, but psychologically they don't like it. So now they think, now I'm fat.
Yeah.
Now I feel fat. Well, what's that going to do to your sex drive and your sort of your way of viewing things in the bedroom? It's not going to help. So that's something just to be aware of, to watch out for.
Yeah.
Like you're doing the right thing. So like one of the things you can kind of set in your head is like, I'm looking forward to, after this contest, getting my body fat up and getting back to a more normal, gaining some size, looking forward to getting bigger so I can look better the next time around. And then I'm going to have my sex drive is going to be back. So it's like, I get to eat chocolate cake and I get to have sex, or whatever, however you want to like view it. So you get to engage and indulge in that pleasure, in life once again. And that comes with doing this. So it's like, it's what you need to do, what you should do, I think, just for your social happiness, for your physical happiness, for your well-being in general. And those two things should kind of go psychologically hand in hand. It's like, I'm doing what's right for me. I'm doing what's right for my partner as well. So looking forward to this, it's like, I think I just need about 3 or 4 more pounds of body fat and then we'll be good to go. And like literally kind of make it your intention. Not that you're going to try to like, balloon up as fast as you can, but, connect those two things in your head. Don't connect your body fat returning to where it once was with, I suck and I can't hold what I once had. And like, the world's crumbling around me. It's like, no, I'm regaining the things that I lost along the way. And this is a healthy and a wellness oriented way of doing this. So this is what I want to do, because it's good for me and it's good for all the people that are, especially my partner, if you have one, or future partner. Just opens up that opportunity. Like you don't want to, like, if you're going to go out into the dating world and there's going to be some expectation, that eventually there's going to be some sex that might happen some point down the road. You like to be able to partake in that. You don't want to, meet someone and like, well, here's, I just thought of this too. It could be a situation where you meet someone and you're like, 6 weeks after a show and you're desperately holding on, and the person thinks, oh, they don't know this. They think you're just naturally run along with that, but your sex drive isn't online. So you're highly sexually attracted to them, and you've set up the initial, like, your first impressions, and sort of the characteristics, features of your relationship are kind of centered around you being this kind of lean, mean machine, but you don't have the sex drive that matches what they're thinking. And so you're like, that's like almost like a false premise that you're going into the relationship with. It's because you're not going to be able to do what you're thinking is going to be great, because to look that way, you're having to really push yourself down, and you're shot yourself in the foot endocrine wise. So that's something to think about too, is you want to, you don't want to go into those new relationships, which could be new important parts of your life, where you've got sort of this albatross of like, God, I got to keep my body fat at, 7% or below. That's not going to work. Then then you get into this, people are gobbling Viagra and that kind of stuff. And like, that's just not
yeah.
You can see where this can go. So
yeah,
I'm sure some listeners are probably like, yeah, I've been there. I know some people who did that. So anyway, those are some things that sort of around this topic, because it's a huge one.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there could be, it's a concern. I don't know if it's a fear, but it's a concern. And you just got to know that, all things being equal, unless there's, something else pathologically going on, the contest itself isn't going to leave you permanently damaged, I wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
But you'll have to bring yourself back up to normal body fat and eating schedule in order to get the hormones back online and everything, all the good stuff that comes with that.
Yeah. I love how you frame that, actually, in terms of, I always frame it in terms of like performance in the gym, but like performance in the bedroom, just in the same way. Like it's a very important thing for a lot of people. And just a very quick note, I know I've spoken to you about my head injury in the past and how I was on so I was on the TRT for I think a number of months, and I came off, and then I competed in my show, and so the reason I could come off was because my natural levels sustained. So doing the show was kind of like a bit of I knew I was going to get into a problematic area with testosterone again, so I was kind of risking that. But for myself, I kind of wanted to do it to prove that I could in a really like stupid male like bodybuilding way. I was just like, if I can recover, I'm fine.
Challenge. Yeah.
So I did recover. So I feel like if I was able to do that in a position that I was in, although it was quite unique and special, it just kind of shows how good the male biology is at like repairing itself.
Yeah. Because you had, what like reasonably could consider potentially a very delicate system. You just got back on the line. You had a literal trauma to the brain tissue that knocked it offline. But just eating back to normal brought you back online hormonally. Yeah. So that is, that's a good piece of evidence, that, it makes sense. The body's, very wise, you know, it's not gonna let you get away with too much. You can't really hack it in too many ways without it saying, that's not where we're going.
So, for sure. Scott, this has been a great chat as always. I think the listeners are going to really enjoy this again. And we've covered all the questions, so we'll have to do this another time at another point. And my dog is desperately wanting me to take her out for a walk.
Time to go, man.
So I'll let her out. But before we do that, have you got anything, any projects, anything you want to let the listeners know about, or is it the same contact points and we'll make sure that's linked below? But is there anything going on your end?
Yeah, in I think it's the 4th of June, I will be in Nashville for American listeners. Look for my Instagram. Oh, there's the thumb. How old is he or she?
She is just 3.5.
Okay. Oh, so she's full grown. Okay, she's got a lot of puppy look to her.
Yeah, she looks. Everyone thinks she's a puppy.
Yeah, what a sweetie. What's the name of the group? I'm blanking on. Jeff Black is the guy who's running the whole show. I can't remember the name of the group. The Physique Excellence Collective, I think is what PEC, I think is what it stands for. And then I think if things work out and COVID, the pandemic allows, hopefully I didn't say the wrong word. You can blank that out if you need to. I know that sometimes will get you knocked off YouTube.
I don't know.
I'll be at FitX in July.
Oh, amazing! Well, they're only in UK, right? Are they not?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I know of.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that's going to happen. So, yeah, Mike and Leisha Gelsai are trying to bring me over. So we're working on that. So
I've heard good things about FitX because it's relatively new, isn't it?
Yeah, they had it. I was supposed to go 2 years ago, I think, and it just kind of fell through. And then I'm not even sure if they had it last year or not. But I think it's kind of like body power has sort of shifted a little bit. It's not what it once was. So I think they're trying to fill that void and do what body power used to be. Yeah, so because that's how I know Mike and Leisha. I mean, they have a great gym there, but they used to have like a section, and they had me. I think it was 1 year, like they had scheduled Jordan Peters, like, double scheduled him like 5 times. And I was able to fill in like 3 of those. And 2 of those were at their section over at Body Power. So I know them through that. Yeah. So they want to bring me over to do some demos and and do some talks on, I think just Q&A. Just
fantastic. The best.
Right.
Like, people love these, so
I always struggle to find answers for things,
Amazing. That's very exciting. So I'll make sure.
So.
Where did you say where is that in the UK?
I want to say it's in Birmingham. I haven't gotten I haven't gotten it might not be, but I think they're doing it at the NEC there.
Okay, Birmingham. Same places where Body Power normally is. Yeah,
I think so. That's what I recall from 2 years ago, but I'm not positive, but that's my best guess. I think it's bitx.com or something like that. It's easy to Google.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure people will be keeping an eye because, I mean, like you said, we haven't been able to do this sort of thing for quite a while. So it's nice to be able to get people back together and chat and talk all the stuff we love doing. So that's awesome. So I'm very excited for that. And
I'll make sure there for that,
I will look into it. I wasn't sure about it. So I mean, I'll definitely have a look into seeing if I'm free for that, because that'd be like I said, I've also been missing out on seeing people in real life, and now there is no Body Power. You don't have that opportunity either. So
there's no Body Power. It's
no, as far as I'm aware, they've completely sacked it off. So
okay, I didn't know that. Interesting. Okay, that makes sense then.
Absolutely. So I'll make sure that the rest of your Instagram and everything else is linked below, and people can get in touch. And
cool.
We'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.
Right on. Thanks.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.